Hey guys, welcome back to the latest episode of the Growing a Dental Practice podcast. I'm your host, Mike Hennon from PatientBoost. In today's episode, I'm joined by Harriet Adkin, Head of Dental and Cosmetic Sectors at EnquiryBot, the all-in-one chatbot. Hello, the all-in-one chatbot helping dental practices increase and manage inquiries from their website. Welcome to the show, Harriet. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, very good. Thank you. We're over the snow here in the north, so yes, all good here. It's been a nice busy week.
Fantastic. And have you had much snow?
Oh yes, yeah. We couldn't
Quite a
get
lot.
out anywhere.
Oh
It
no.
was last week now actually, but yeah, it was couldn't leave the house. It was quite a few inches, so not safe on the roads.
No. See, down south we had like a fluttering, but it never settled. So all lucky here.
Yeah.
Actually, do you when snow falls, does it excite you like it would have done as a kid, or do you dread it?
I dread walking in it because I'm scared of slipping over. But I do think it's quite fun, and I've got a little dog, and he absolutely loves it. So it definitely
Okay.
is kind of fun aspects of it. So yeah, it's nice for a few days.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you on the podcast. Very excited to kind of dig into your story. It is I think it's very interesting, even if you might not. And so I would love to dive into basically just give us a little bit of background, like where where are you from, and kind of how has your career gone today?
Yeah. Okay, I'll try to keep this nice and sweet. So my original background, my degree is actually in business management and finance. It's not in dentistry. So I actually initially worked in the prestige car finance industry, which I soon realised wasn't really for me, just a personal choice. I then got headhunted for the implant surgeon, David, at the time, he got in touch with me and wanted somebody to kind of run the front of house and logistics for the dental laboratory that he had, which was relatively small at the time. So me at the time was wondering what do dental labs do? So I obviously asked lots and lots of different questions, what the role entailed, just kind of what it would consist of really. Decided to accept the job, and then that's when I joined the world of dentistry, which in itself is just a fascinating industry. So yeah, I started with zero knowledge and learned all the kind of technical sides of it. I actually wasn't obviously designing or doing any of the technician roles, but I still needed to speak with the dentists and the clinicians to be able to explain the components and materials and things like that. So I'm very much eager to learn. He was a surgeon, so he was in practice all day. So I would either go in on an evening so I could learn from him, go over cases, or go out on the road with him. So I got a lot of time in the car so we could discuss cases, learn, what this meant and what this meant. So I soon picked it up. The lab itself was predominantly just cosmetic and implants, and we had two technicians initially. It then grew. We started developing and doing lots of courses, particularly in the implant world, guided surgery, printing surgical guides and things like that. So I got to learn the planning aspect of it as well, which I really enjoyed actually. It's a little bit more kind of IT techie, which is an area that I'm quite good at. So yeah, we're on this journey of kind of growing and developing the laboratory, going out, getting dentists to obviously send the work to the laboratory. David then decided he wanted to open his own clinic. So we then were on the search for a property. We found one in Harrogate, which was right around the corner from my house at the time, which was very convenient.
Perfect.
So off I went to auction, put in the bid while he's in surgery on the building, which was scary.
Did
for me.
you have a paddle?
Just
Just
fundraising.
a hand.
It was literally, what's that program called?
Homes Under the Hammer?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was literally like that. I had been to
Awesome.
one before, so
Yeah.
I knew what to expect, but it was quite an
Fantastic.
exciting day.
So I feel like I might be digging too deep into this, but had you discussed ideal cost or ideal price, and then you'd kind of discuss you'll go as far as
Yeah,
X.
we had some somewhat kind of time frame, not time frame, sorry, budgets and things like that. But yeah, it was all very kind of just a strange, interesting encounter, really, just kind of going to the auction and not really knowing how it would go. But yeah, we got the building. It was a beautiful building, like I say, in Harrogate, not far away from where I was living at the time. And it was in the kind of half of it was a kind of PT studio and half of it was offices. So it obviously needed to be converted. So we had the PT studio converted into the laboratory. So all the benches added in, all the suctions and all the things that you need to run a laboratory. So that moved in straight away. And then we went on to renovate the rest of the building it was a 3 surgery practice, which was again predominantly just implants. So I then managed all the change of use of the building, floor plans, flooring, cabinets, chairs, suctions, everything that you need in a dental practice, IT systems, everything. I managed to set up the paint on the wall, branding, website, which was very exciting, very challenging as well, as you can probably imagine.
I bet.
Anybody listening that's ever opened up an extra surgery or clinics, it's a lot of work. It took us several months, but we got there in the end, and then we opened the clinic. So then I kind of shifted a little bit more towards the clinical aspect opposed to the laboratory side, because by that point the laboratory was very much kind of maintaining, had a good client base, and the clients were happy and we were doing well. So yeah, I kind of moved over to the more of the clinical side of it then, and I was in an operational role, so overseeing the clinic from staffing to systems to generating more patients, you name it, I did it. Just jack of all trades, really. But it's nice. My passion's in business growth, really. So it is, it was very fulfilling in that sense to take a business from literally nothing to something. So yeah, very rewarding in that aspect. So next stage was David found a implant that he liked that wasn't actually stocked in the UK. So we went over to Italy and negotiated, mainly David at that point, negotiated the UK rights to distribute that implant. And then we kind of obviously set up that business as well, which I wasn't heavily involved with, I'll be honest, but I did set up the kind of more of the accounting and business logistics, really.
Fantastic. So
that was that aspect of it.
That was that aspect. We haven't even talked about EnquiryBot yet.
No. Yeah. So moving on to EnquiryBot. By that point, we'd obviously grown the clinic. It got to a stage where we were ready to look at other investors getting involved. So I decided to exit the business at that point, and sell out my portion. And we had used EnquiryBot within the clinic to grow the clinic. So I knew the benefits of it because I had seen it firsthand and loved the system and loved the people within the team as well, because I'd met them at a couple of dental shows and I just had that support. I always joke that I was probably a really demanding client, because I was always like, oh, can we do this? Can we do this? Can you just make this tweak? And the team were always, great at kind of meeting my demands, if you like. So yeah, I got in touch with EnquiryBot. Like I say, my passion's in business growth, and that's what they help. Lots of different sectors as well, not just dental. And we decided to join. So I joined EnquiryBot in October.
Fantastic. So we obviously will touch on EnquiryBot.
Yeah.
We've had Adam on the podcast before. Great guy. Yeah. Actually, probably one of my first proper guests. So that's kind of going back. That was probably sort of this time last year, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So before we dive into that, like your latest chapter, I want to go back because I don't know how we've managed to go through like all those phases so quickly.
Yeah, I'm used to trying to explain it in a nutshell, because there is a lot of aspects to it. So yeah, I've tried to,
which is fascinating. So obviously you went from prestige finance,
yes,
into the world of dentistry. So, but not maybe via the traditional route of a dental practice. You started at a dental lab.
Yes.
Then you help even just thinking. So at the time, David? Did he? He didn't have a practice. He was practicing in other people's practices, but he had his own lab. Is that right?
Yes. So his background, he actually originally trained as a dental technician, and
Okay.
then over in Canada, and then came to the UK.
Okay.
Dentist, and then he's got that background in dental technology, so he set up his own lab. I mean, it started initially before I was there, but that
Yeah.
he was doing the designing and substructure and things like that, and then he obviously brought in technicians to help and grew the lab that way. But it started with the fact that he wanted to do his own lab work. So yeah, he was based at I think probably about 6 clinics, again, like I say, predominantly kind of cosmetic implant, and then he wanted to be closer to home, closer to the family, not traveling around as much, and have his own clinic. And that's when we decided. It took a while to find the right property. It's hard in itself.
I bet. The right size and the right location, that kind of thing. Yeah, no, fantastic. So you went from the lab, then you obviously put the work in, and you became a partner, and you actually opened a practice, which is fantastic.
Yes.
Also, there's the side bit of the sort of becoming a distributor for an implant manufacturer. All in the space of how quickly did that happen, or how many years did that?
It was 5.5 years from when I joined to exiting.
That must have been a busy couple of years.
Yes, definitely. Well, I mean, the clinic opened August 2019. So, the clinic is, midway through, really. And obviously we had a pandemic and COVID in there as well. So, yeah, the clinic grew significantly quick, actually.
Fantastic. So I want to, and I'm hoping you'll know the answer to this. How did David find you? So did he interact with you from a finance perspective? Like, how did that happen?
So it was actually through Indeed. So I think what was happening is, where I was at the time, I was going for an internal promotion. So I'd been on to get my CV off of Indeed then, because you still had to obviously apply for the position. So I wasn't actively looking, but I must have been active on Indeed to draw down my CV or something. To be honest, it's all a little bit, I don't think either of us really know how we found each other, but he managed to contact me, and I just received this email to say, would you be interested in this kind of role? And I was just very intrigued, because I didn't know really what it entailed. I mean, he always used to joke that he hired me because I interviewed him, but I was just really ready for the right job, and I wanted a career that I wanted to, grow, and something that I was really passionate about. I didn't want to just fall into another job for, a year or two and then move on. Very kind of loyal in that sense. That's just my personality trait. So I wanted something that was going to be right for me. So I was very, questioning what it entailed, and it was a new world to me. But because it was new, it was also very fascinating. And to this day, I find the dental industry very fascinating. All the technology, it's always changing, always improving, and it's just nice being in a world that is always, on the go, new improvements and things like that. So
yeah, absolutely. See, I love that. So it literally almost like the chances of this happening super slim.
yeah,
and yeah, it happened.
yeah, I know. Well, I always say it was meant to be. I was meant to fall into this world. So yeah, everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely. I say that with when people ask, like, how have you got a Canadian business partner? And like there's this all these things that as the stars aligned, and
Yeah.
that, so it must have been the same for you and David. So that's awesome. So what you mentioned, some of the things that you picked up in in working in the lab, like what was it really like working in a lab? Because a lot of people listening will only have worked in a practice. Like, what's it like
Yeah.
working in a lab, and what did you learn working in a lab?
It's great fun working in a lab, because you don't have, obviously, you're kind of behind the scenes a little bit. So it's a lot more kind of casual in that sense. It's a bit more of a messy environment rather than clinicals. Obviously, everything has to be prestige, everything has to be clean and stuff. So, we did have a very clean lab, I'll be honest, but it's still, a different kind of environment to clinical. But yeah, it was great fun. We all worked hard. But we had a good team. Of course, we were on the smaller side of it. We had very different characters in the lab as well. David being Canadian in himself, you know, he was a very kind of fun guy to be around as well. So yeah, we had a great time in the lab and building the lab. And like I say, I just naturally moved, you know, more clinical. You know, it's just the natural direction of the business opposed to through choices. And I spoke to a lot of dentists and things, so I had good relationships with them. So yeah, I love the lab world. It's a great world to be in. I feel like, again, it's something that unless you know somebody in it or you kind of fall into it somehow, not many people know, you know, out in the non-dental world much kind of what it consists of. But no, it's a great industry, and it's a great place to be. It's, like I say, very fun, and there's always new technology and exciting things to be learning. So it's kind of similar in that sense to, you know, normal dentistry with new technology. It's the same in the lab world. There's always new materials to be trialing, and new techniques.
Fantastic. That's awesome. And so, you know, you get in a rhythm with the dental lab, and then David says, we're going to open a practice. Like,
Yeah.
what was your first thought?
Oh, I'm just throwing myself in now. I'm excited. Yeah. Yeah.
So you didn't think I have no idea what I'm doing, or you thought that and just powered on regardless?
No, I don't know. I guess I'm not too kind of phased by that. I think, you know, we worked really well as a team. You know, I can think of the logistics and how to make things happen, and he can say kind of what he envisions and stuff. So we just had a really good dynamic in that sense. So I think between us, I knew that we could do it. So yeah, I wasn't too phased. I think I just took each step at a time. We weren't rushing it. Like, we weren't trying to set ourselves unrealistic deadlines. We obviously wanted to get open, but at the same time, yeah, you just have to look into things. And yeah, I think I just took it in my stride, really.
Perfect. So you already mentioned that, you know, finding the location was pretty difficult.
Yeah.
What did you want from a location or from a property? What were you like? What was on your kind of like your dream list?
Yeah. So parking's, you know, it can be difficult for patients, and especially depending on the age and things of your patients as well. Accessibility, that property wasn't amazing accessibility, but it is something that I would say to consider, because obviously then you know, able to treat, or, you know, any type of patient, and you know, irrelevant of the age and things like that. So yeah, accessibility, just the kind of layout of it as well. Like, if you can amend the layout, or if it's very structured. You know, obviously some buildings have particular, you can't take down this wall, this wall, and this wall. So, you know, are you going to be able to actually set up the structure that you want for the waiting rooms and patient lounges and staff rooms, surgeries and things? So yeah, just the actual building foundations, but mainly parking accessibility is kind of key. And one thing that I'd say is, if you think it's big enough, it probably isn't. You will outgrow it.
Excellent. So did you consciously make sure it was bigger than you needed at that moment in time? Like, did you plan for growth?
I think on hindsight, we probably could have done with being a bigger building. It was a big building, but we had the lab as well. So, you know, there's two aspects, and as the lab grew, then it went into another area. So we had the lab kind of downstairs, and where we thought we might be able to add additional surgeries, we actually ended up having that as lab space. So yeah, I think it was a nice, grand, big building, but I think, like, on hindsight, not in hindsight, you know, you kind of you don't realize, you think it's a big building, and then once you've filled all the rooms, you realize, oh, actually, we could probably do with more. So yeah, it could have been bigger, but it was a lovely building.
Fantastic. And how long did it take from the, I don't know, the moment that you decided to do it through to like opening day? Like, how long was that process?
I would say probably about 8 or 9 months, which I know for some clinics is a long time. A lot of people are able to do it, especially if they use companies. There's a lot of companies out there that will support to get the surgeries kitted out. But I decided to manage the project myself, in terms of I would independently find the plumber, and then independently find, you know, somebody to supply the chair and the cabinets and things like that. So because I was managing a lot of different people, I think that took longer. It was overall, obviously, the costings were reduced, but that's another thing, weighing up the time frames of using those kind of companies versus do it yourself. I think that's another thing. I really enjoy doing it, but I think I probably would in future use those kind of companies that are built for it, because they're the experts. And I just think that we probably could have opened quicker, and which is it's not necessarily the kind of main goal. Like I say, we weren't in a rush, but at the same time, I think there's some areas that we had maybe a couple of issues. If the plumber was let us down and stuff, it delayed other things. Whereas if you're using one company, then obviously you don't kind of have those delays in place.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Some great lessons there.
Yeah.
Did you, obviously you went from lab to the practice side. What was the biggest difference between going from working in a lab to working in a practice? Like, what were the most notable differences?
Well, it's the clientele for me. Obviously, I was kind of, B2B really, lab to speaking to the actual clinicians themselves, the dentists that were sending the work to the lab. So that is more of a, a B2B transaction. Whereas when you start going clinical, obviously you're dealing with patients. And it's, even though the cases are still on an individual basis, and you're talking to the dentist, it's just a different dynamic. And the same with any kind of marketing and stuff that I was overseeing, or any kind of communications that go out to clients versus patients. Again, the dynamic of that changes. So I'd say for me, the biggest change was actually who my kind of customers were. Yeah.
Like you say, you sort of went from B2B, so sort of lab to dentist, and then to dentist to patient. Having been on both sides of like the business, obviously the relationship between a lab and a practice is super important. It's really critical. What would you say, based on your experience of being on both sides, like, how do you make that relationship like super strong and productive and effective for both people on both sides?
From in the lab side of
or just how do you, so from a lab side and from a practice side, like, give us some advice on like how to make that relationship between the lab and the practice like super productive and healthy. And
I would just say communication is key. I know that's quite a simple thing to say, but picking up the phone and discussing the case, particularly if you do have a patient that has relatively high demands, or I don't know, the shades may be a little bit off, and making sure that you're providing the lab. This is probably actually the most important thing, is making sure that you're providing the lab the information and the tools that they need in order to provide you with the work that you're expecting. The shades and things like that, the technicians, and they're not going to be able to accurately meet the shades if they don't have accurate shade guide information and things like that. So same with any fits. If there is anything that they're not happy with, I'll say communication, pick up the phone, discuss it with the laboratory, and there may be something on the lab end as to why that is, from a technical point of view, why they've designed it like that versus what they've received, and then just explaining that and having that conversation. And like I say, a two-way, whether it's feedback from the dentist to the technicians, or same the technicians highlighting potential concerns with what they've received. It has to be a two-way street, definitely. So communication, I would say, is the best thing to do with your lab, to make sure that you've got a nice, good relationship, and hopefully then receive, consistent good work. It's just, if you don't get a piece of work that you're not happy with, to feed that back to them. People can't improve without feedback, can they? So.
No, absolutely. That's fantastic advice. Like that, like, I've done it. You can stress that, like, it's a two-way thing, isn't it? It's not us versus them or anything. It's like we're in this together.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, it's patient. It's a patient at the end of the outcome. Everybody wants the same goal. The technicians want the dentist to be happy because they want the patient to be happy, and that is everybody's end goal, is to make sure the patient receives the treatment and outcome that they have elected for.
Brilliant. Thanks, Harriet. That's fantastic. So honestly, I love that. Like, I could listen to you more, but we'll try and like reduce the time. So now we've talked about like your background, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
I would like to talk about like the next chapter. So,
Yeah.
you decided that it was time to move on. You reached out to the team at EnquiryBot, having been a previous customer.
Mhm.
And then now you're the head of dental and cosmetic sectors, which is
Yes.
awesome. And so just remind us, but like I said, Adam's been on the podcast before.
Yeah.
Just remind us what EnquiryBot is and what it does for businesses, including dental practices.
Yes. Okay. So EnquiryBot is a custom-built chatbot that is designed to engage with your website visitors. In the dental industry, we know that on average, about 98.5% of people that land on the website will leave without sharing their details. 98.5% is a huge number of business that you're losing. So having a chatbot on there, and a good chatbot that's actually engaging and dynamic, because there's also different variances, of course, with what you add to the website. It's about engaging with the website visitors to ultimately increase the number of quality inquiries. And again, I stress quality there, because we don't want to generate 100 leads if none of them book in. So nice pre-qualified leads, and which will help the business grow in terms of obviously seeing more patients. There's also an inquiry management system as well, which will help nurture those patients and consistently help the team save time in terms of responding to those inquiries, give any marketing, reporting aspects, feedback in terms of tracking, understanding what is actually going on in your business. So you'll be able to nurture those leads to hopefully convert more into paying patients. So generate more patients, convert more patients is the two key aspects of EnquiryBot.
Perfect, fantastic, great summary. And so this is what gives you kind of a great sort of perspective, is the fact that you had been on the other side, like you have used it in a dental practice. You're not just someone that's come in and is trying to sell a product. Like you're selling something that you believe in, which is great.
Yeah.
Why do you think EnquiryBot is so effective? Because chatbots isn't a new thing anymore. Like they are pretty common. There are a lot out there. Like, what do you think makes you guys so effective when it comes to kind of capturing leads and converting them?
Yeah, well, to be honest, if you think about things, it's like Adam always gives the example of, you can do the plumbing yourself, but will you end up having to call the plumber out anyway because you haven't done a good job? So we are experts in building chatbots. The bot has been continuously optimized and continuously developed. The actual bot itself is custom built for the businesses, so there's that aspect of it. It's also what we call dynamic. So if you imagine that you're running a Facebook ad for a implant or Invisalign campaign to generate more patients, that patient seeing the advert, they're then being sent to a landing page or a page on the website specific about that treatment. You then have a chatbot on the website that maybe is a templated generic one that says, "Hi, how can I help?" And it's not continuing that flow. So with the dynamic aspect of the chatbot, it can jump straight into that conversation and continue that journey and continue that engagement. And it's just the level of engagement. People's interest and attention span is reducing so much. You sit on your phone, you scroll. You might glance at something for such a short period of time, and I'm sure you come across it all the time. So understanding that it's so important to capture those details and engage with that website visitor is so important. So yeah, the key differences obviously between EnquiryBot and other kind of dental chatbots on the market is it's designed by experts, and we have years of experience building and optimizing bots, so it just ultimately does perform better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to add a few more points to that, Harriet. So I would say EnquiryBot is probably one of the best looking bots as well.
Yes.
Like a lot of them look clunky and kind of a bit like almost like completely separate from the business. Whereas the way it's kind of like there's and you can change the settings, but like the fact it's kind of like on top of the website rather than being like a blocky thing, which is great.
Yeah. The actual bot itself doesn't sit on your website either, so it doesn't slow down or affect any SEO, which again is something that you do need to think about, because adding a bot on there that could be negatively impacting your marketing. But yeah, because it's custom built, obviously it can be all on brand, it can be all in the tone of voice. Use some of the keywords in there and some of the wording and terminology that are on the website. And I mean, on the bot that we had, it was my photo, because obviously I was kind of the face of the company.
So did it pop up saying, "Hi, I'm Harriet"?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Fantastic.
And then they were like, they came into the clinic and they'd know, a little bit kind of about me and stuff. So you can do that. You can personalize it. And again, it's just keeping that personal touch with patients. It's a very competitive market. So, the best possible chance. We also set up automatic responses so that the inquiries are acknowledged straight away, which again is just taking you and the patient one step further down the patient journey.
Absolutely, that makes a big difference. Like if you've ever been on a website and you've submitted a contact form and you hear crickets, like there's nothing worse than that. And like if you hear crickets or hear nothing back, then you're more likely to move on to the next practice or the next business.
Yeah.
Whereas even though we know the response is automated, but just having that automated email come through saying, "Look, we've got your back. We've received your inquiry. We'll be in touch with you soon," changes like the dynamic of the relationship like immediately. Like it's a pretty important step.
I mean, I've been there. I've inquired with the business and not heard for like 2 or 3 days, and I'm like, have they got it? Do I need to call them? Especially when it's something that at the moment, in that moment where you're sharing those details, you're very keen. You want that treatment, and that's it might have taken them months of to get the courage up to actually send that inquiry, to not even acknowledge it for several days. It's kind of bringing them down a little bit. So, and that acknowledgement is worth its weight in gold, really.
Absolutely, because it's we talk about this all the time. Like to get someone over the line from being like a prospect to like a patient, it can take between 8 and 12 touch points. And that email, the website visit is a touch point. That email or SMS text they get is a touch point. And I just want to highlight one more feature that I think is fantastic. Is unlike a lot of chatbots that just kind of sit there, hover there in the bottom right corner, and kind of expect people to click on them or know to click on them. What I love about you guys is that and again, you can change this if you want to, but usually by default it automatically almost like welcomes.
Yes, it does.
The visitor to the website. So it's not a case of we'll hope for the best and hope that someone clicks the chat button. It's like after a few seconds, or you can change the length of time, but you're almost saying like, "Hi, like I'm Harriet, like thanks for visiting our website." Like it's almost like I think, and Adam says this as well, like it's a receptionist for your website.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I was just waiting for you to finish. It is like your website receptionist, and it's doing what a very well-trained receptionist would do. It's welcoming them to the practice, just like if a patient walked in the door, and it's asking them what they're interested in, and it's pre-qualifying them, asking not just what are you interested in, but then a little bit more than that, reasons for treatment, uploading photos. You can manage those expectations. I always say, sometimes people want to get their teeth whitened or straightened for their wedding, knowing that they're doing it for an event. What a great thing to know, to pick up the phone and you say, "Oh, congratulations, I hear that you're getting married, how exciting, I'm so happy that we get to get in touch with you and hopefully give you that dream smile for your wedding day." And it's just giving you something to build that rapport on. So pre-qualifying them with those questions is just, like I say, it just really helps that journey to give that personal touch, and you come across to those patients as really going above and beyond because you've listened to what they've expressed on the website, and then kind of mentioned it on when you do speak to them.
Fantastic. That's awesome. So like we discussed, like compared to probably the majority of chatbots out there on the market, EnquiryBot definitely is like the one to check out. Not to say that because we've used that in the past, but it is a great product and the team behind it are great as well. And so moving on from there, Harriet, so this is going to be, I can't wait to get your answer to this, but based on your experience of working in a lab, then building a dental practice and working in a dental practice, and then some interaction with a dental manufacturer, and now working with a business that works heavily with dental practices.
Yeah.
What would be your sort of number one piece of advice for anyone kind of thinking about buying or starting a dental practice, like what would you say to someone who's
That
like sitting on the edge or just got the keys? Yeah.
One thing. Oh, that's a tough one, just to choose one. The first one I would say is just to invest in the good foundations of the business. So I appreciate setting up a new clinic or setting up a new business. Obviously, the outgoings and things can be high, but setting up good foundations in terms of systems. So, obviously, EnquiryBot and a system to manage those inquiries, obviously, dental software, and all the things that you need to run a busy, successful clinic. Invest in them at the very beginning, because they're going to lay the foundations, and the team are going to understand how to deal with it, and it helps you put in the processes in place and the workflows in place for the entire business, because everything stems from these systems that you put in place from day one, rather than trying to compromise and using spreadsheets and things like that, which we've all been there. They have their purpose, but the accuracy isn't there. To really understand what's going on from day one in your business is very important. So invest in what you need to is probably my one big thing. And then the second one, which I'm just going to throw in there, is to value your staff. Staff are so hard to find. Good staff should be valued, rewarded, and keep them, nurture them, and like I say, value them, because the staff around you, it's not just the dentist, it's the treatment coordinators, it's the nurses, it's the manager. They, as a whole, what is running that business. It doesn't just rely on one person. So if you get a good staff member, then value them, appreciate them, and I think that in itself, between them two, is a good starting point of how to run a successful dental practice.
Fantastic, Harriet. I bet you've got loads of more thoughts. But yeah, we'll keep it to those two for now. Maybe you'll have to write a book one day.
Oh God, no, I don't think I could do that. I could do it. I could talk and talk and talk for hours, but not so much writing.
Okay, fair enough. Brilliant. Well, Harriet, thank you so much. Before we wrap up today, I would love, if anyone listening would love to learn more about you or EnquiryBot, how can they get in touch?
So email or telephone number. Will you be able to share the details?
Yeah, I will share these after. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, if you add in my email, so to harriet@enquirybot.com, and then my telephone number, you can reach out to me anytime. I'm more than happy to discuss anything that I've gone over today, from prior EnquiryBot, or kind of discussing how to help your business grow and develop with EnquiryBot. So yeah, email or telephone number, whichever is the preferred method.
Fantastic, Harriet. Thank you so much for your time today. Again, like I knew that it was going to be a good podcast from an intro chat.
Just one other little thing actually before we end. We have a huge update coming very, very soon, which is going to be very exciting, including other methods, so like WhatsApp, SMS, and of being able to reach out to your patients. But yeah, other things are in the making. There's always development going on. So yeah, I'll leave that with you as a bit of a
that's cheeky. Trying to give us a little sample, but not all of it.
It's very, very exciting, this update actually. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled.
Fantastic, guys. So we're going to wrap things up there. Please, if you don't already have EnquiryBot on your website, which you go on a lot of dental websites, there are a lot of EnquiryBot chatbots, which is fantastic. If you don't already have one, and you want to get more leads from your website, do go and talk to Harriet. It will work. Like it's designed to work, and it will work for you. So with that being said, Harriet, thank you so much for your time again, and I will talk to you very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.